So I guess we can start. So welcome everyone. I'm Jannik. I'm the founder of Develop Development. Unfortunately, my sister, she had an allergic reaction to something she was giving here yesterday. So she can't really speak. So she's unfortunately back at the house resting. But I'm super excited to be here with you guys. We're going to be talking about Develop Development, what Develop Development is. And we're going to be talking about also how personality theory can hold you back or drive you forward. So in personal development, we have this great tool, which is personality theory. But we tend to use it in a way that's not the most empowering. So how have we seen it traditionally used? We tend to see it with tests that give you a profile, and it tells you who you are, what your strengths and what your pitfalls are. And while it is valuable in some settings, like in work settings and in academia, I've had professors in universities give me a test to see how I learn. There are moments where we need a very efficient, very express way of figuring out how someone functions. But the reality is we're not just one thing. We're a mix of all different types of personalities. We have different states and different moments. We operate in different ways. So what we do at Develop Development is we try to approach things slightly differently. We have no tests, first of all, because tests have a margin of error. And you're not just one thing, because we're not just one personality. We're a mix of all the different types of personalities. The effect it has on our body is different, and that's something we explore a lot. How operating in some ways regenerates us, in some ways drains us. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. But how many of you have tried taking a personal development course or study a personal development system that worked fantastically for your friends, and they wholeheartedly recommend it for you, and when you try it, it doesn't really work for you? The recommendations they give you, it was what they needed, but it had nothing to do with what you needed. It happens a lot because the problem with personal development is sometimes we get super excited something that works for us and we want to share it with everyone. But the reality is what works for us and what works for other people is not always the same. We all have different needs, we all function in different ways. And the solution traditionally has been personality theory. Personality tests are implemented in many systems around the world in many different areas. And we want to do it differently. So what do I mean by doing it differently? Well, personality theory dates back to ancient Greece. It started with Hippocrates with the 4 temperaments. Many of you might be familiar with them. And it's nothing new, but the problem with time is we have accepted a lot of things that aren't very empowering, because we say, oh, it's all bundled in, so this is how personality theory works, and we're just going to accept these things as fact. But just because some things work in personality theory doesn't mean that everything works. So right now they're doing a lot of research, and there's a lot of new information out there that's being talked about in academia that has not made its way into the world of personal development. So we're trying to bridge that gap and create something more empowering that has more up-to-date information. So to do that, we have to be willing to look at things critically, what works and what doesn't. So I travel around the world working with personality theory. I have students or clients all over the world, and one thing that I see recurring a lot is this idea of someone comes to me and they say, oh, I've already taken DISC, I've already taken Enneagram, I've already taken my test. And so I already know what personality theory is about. Sure, you know part of personality theory, and it's exciting and it's valuable, and for some people, that sort of stuff gives them a place in the world. How many of us feel that we have no place in the world, that we are wrong for being who we are? Maybe we got rejected, maybe we had a bad experience where we used part of our personality in a negative way, and then we've judged ourselves for that for life, right? So even the basic tests have their value, but we don't do tests. We talk about this self-exploration journey where you find out who you are and what all the different facets we have to our personality. So I don't know what's going on back there, but so in personality theory, there are some new things that are really cool that are being studied at Harvard University, for example. There's a professor called Brian Little. And Brian Little, he's a very introverted guy, as introverted as you can get. I mean, this guy really does not want social interaction. He needs very low stimulus. And let me say something before you guys get the wrong idea. There's a big difference between shyness and introversion. Introversion is the need for less social stimulus. Shyness is the fear of judgment. Even an extrovert like me can have fear of judgment. Had you guys seen me in high school, I couldn't go up to a girl. I would freeze, I would shake, I would imagine all the ways that she would reject me. And I'm an extrovert. You put me in any setting, and I'll be friends with everyone. I will have an easy time talking to people because I was not afraid of being rejected by random people. But when I made someone very important, it would scare me to death. I mean, if you make anyone more important than yourself in those moments, you're gonna be afraid of the outcome. And sometimes you give too much power to your fears. So how many times have you seen an individual, let's say a romantic interest, and you put them on a pedestal and you make them so important that you freeze in front of them? How many times have you seen a client and you've made that client so important and you've thought that that client is gonna fix all your problems? And then it's like you get desperate and you make yourself small and you freeze with them. These things happen to all personalities. There's not a person in this world that doesn't have insecurities in some moments. And you're gonna see there are entrepreneurs in this world, super successful. There are business coaches. There are all kinds of celebrities that are super successful, multimillionaires, who have this concept called imposter syndrome. They're waiting for the day that they are caught as being fraud or being a scam because it was too easy for them, because they were in their element. They were doing things that were easy for them but hard for others, and they don't celebrate it. So we can all have fear of rejection. We can all have imposter syndrome. We can all have fear of judgments. And shyness is something that even the most extroverted people, they have that. Not in every moment. You put me in almost any situation, I'm comfortable. But there are those moments where I am afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of being rejected. And even I freeze. Every day it's less. And this is something we can work on. There's this thing called, like, if you look at the fear of rejection, if you look at this thing that paralyzes us, it's because we're giving more importance to that fear than what we're trying to achieve. It's comfortable, but it's not very empowering. So what we want to do is give more importance to our goal than to that fear. The moment we do that, the fear doesn't paralyze us. And we talk about, in development, we talk about if you want to change your life, personality theory is valuable because you can create a life that works for you, that doesn't drain you. How many times have we created lives that drain us every day? Relationships where we cannot be ourselves. Jobs where we have to step into a personality that's not ours. I'm not saying limit yourself to your biological nature. In developed element, we talk about 3 different states. We talk about biological nature, that's our essence. We cannot change it. We can fight against it. We can suppress it. We can resist it with every inch of our being, but it's gonna be there no matter what. Then we have the societal state. The societal state is that state where our culture, our family, our religion, our job, all the people around us, our friends, they influence us. They mean well many times, but they influence us based on what works for them. I myself have a very introverted father, very logical, structured. He's academic. He graduated from, 2 Ivy League universities. He went to Penn and Princeton. Very, very smart guy, my father. But he gained his confidence through mastery of his topic, his area of interest. And he wanted me to do that because he thought that worked for him, so it must work for me. I was not the best academic. I wanted to be an academic because my dad told me I wanted to be an academic, but it wasn't for me. And it took me a few years to kind of learn that and give myself permission to find my path, right? So we all talk in personal development, how many times have you been told, find your purpose, live your dream, and go for it? Yes, I mean, we hear it all the time. And we hear it all the time because it's true. I mean, we should. But we need tools to do that. And we need resilience to do that. Any project, anytime you go against the grain, you go choose a path that your family might not understand. And I'm not saying, like, be a rebel, but be true to yourself, right? So anytime we want to do that, we need tools to have the resilience. And that's where personality psychology gives us tools to have more battery during the times where things are hard. How many times are you gonna have surprises? I mean, to get here, guys should have seen what a challenge it was to get here for me. When I got to the airport to fly here, my ticket had miraculously, well, not miraculously, surprisingly gotten canceled, and they told me I canceled it. I didn't cancel it, but Delta had a cancellation request, and then all of a sudden I have no ticket to get here. I had to get here, bring all the merchandise, bring all the stuff, and I had no way of bringing it. I had no tickets, there were no tickets available that day, and I was on the phone for 2 hours with Delta, and they couldn't get me on a flight. They finally managed, after long hours, to get me on an Aeromexico flight, and then I managed to get here. I get here, I tried to put $5,000 on my business bank account, the ATM swallows it. My sister was supposed to be here right now. She, here at the event, got something, tried it, that gave her an allergic reaction, and she swelled up, and she doesn't even have a voice. She can't even speak right now. So I have to do this talk by myself. How many times with any project are you going to have surprise after surprise after surprise? I'm not saying life is easy. I'm not going to solve all your problems with personality psychology, but with this we have tools to have more energy and more passion and perseverance during the moments that are difficult. When we assess that a project or a task is more important than our fears, we can overcome any obstacle. And with Develop Your Element, we have a pretty interesting proposition. We're all a unique mix of personalities. In Develop Your Element, we talk about 6 different personalities. This is a progressive scale. Up top, we have the most extroverted. On the bottom, we have the most introverted. We have all of them inside of us. But we want to find the primary and the secondary. We don't have tests, so it's up to you guys to see which ones are your natural ones. So, the electric type is the most extroverted, most energetic, most youthful, most adventurous, most impulsive. I mean, they are the life of the party. When they're regenerated, let me say, I'm going to start with the pros. I'm going to talk about the strengths. Then we have the fiery type. The fiery type, that's my primary. Fiery types are very passionate people. People who really are focused. They're like on a mission. They always have the passion projects. In one conversation with a fiery guy, they're going to talk to you about their passion project for hours. Electric people, they're going to talk to you about 50 different topics because they get excited about everything. They get, oh, this is exciting, this is exciting. So that's a bit of a difference. Both of them are amazing, and both of them have a lot to contribute to society, to family, to projects, and when they're regenerated, wow, it's great. When they're drained, I mean, and you guys know it, when you're drained, you have less mental clarity, less patience, less control of your personality. An electric person, when they're drained, they have no ability to control their energy to the right amount and intensity that's required. And they start many projects and don't finish anything. But when they're regenerated, they're the life of the party, and they charm everyone, and they inspire everyone, and they fill any room with energy. Fiery types. Fiery types, they uplift everyone when they're regenerated, when they're confident. But when they're drained, they put other people down to put themselves up. It's a false arrogance they use. And they also push everyone to the point of draining everyone. The same character traits, when used in a regenerated and confident state, is productive. The confidence that fire has can either inspire or drain people. The energy that electric people have can either infuse energy in a group, or they can overwhelm with their energy. Then we have 2 ambiverts. The ambiverts, they're that middle energy. They're neither fully extroverted, neither fully introverted. Aquatic. They are the most sentimental, the most romantic, the most detail-oriented type. When they're regenerated, they are enchanting. Their support, their unconditional support is inspiring. It's mesmerizing. But when they're drained, it's a lot of drama. It's a lot of manipulation. It's a lot of, you don't love me, you don't care about me. it's a lot of insecurities that come up. They live in a fairy tale land, and when they're happy, it's a beautiful fairy tale, and when they're drained and insecure, it turns into a horror story. Earthly types. Earthly types, they're ambiverts that lean towards introverts. And they are nurturing. They take care of everyone. They really want to build nests for themselves and for others. But they cannot rest and regenerate until other people are comfortable. That's my secondary type. If I see any of you uncomfortable, I'm going to be like, I want to go there, get them a blanket or a drink, or can I do something? And it's like for me to focus on the whole group. If there's one person that's uncomfortable, it's very hard. Earthy types, when they're drained, they kind of build their little bubbles, their little nest, and they don't step outside of the comfort zone. But when they're regenerated, they infuse harmony in any space. Just touching you, just listening to you, just being present makes you feel at ease. Airy type. The airy type, when they are regenerated, they are analytical minds. They're geniuses. I mean, there's not one type that's more intelligent than any other. Let me just say that. But they are analytical. They are intellectual. They analyze. They research. They see everything and they perceive everything. And in any group, they find solutions to problems that no one else finds. They don't always share those. If you have an airy person in your space, please make sure to ask them in a not so intense way what it is that they have researched, right? So the airy type, when they're regenerated, it's amazing. But when they're drained, they get so overwhelmed that they have to disconnect physically from the space. They need a lot of personal space, and they need to reduce stimulus. For example, if you have an employee who's airy, it happened to me. I was recently in Colombia, and I coach a whole company on optimizing their performance. And they had their best salesperson was an introvert, an airy introvert, who needs a lot of personal space. And it turned out that when there was no panic, no stress, no tension, no intensity from the managers, he sold more than anyone else. No one could even get close. But when the managers got very panicky and intense, they would shut down and not sell a thing. So we have to understand these differences. So metallic is the final type. They're the Spocks from Star Trek, Sheldon Cooper, Big Bang Theory, you know, Dr. House, Bones, Drax. I mean, all these examples of people who just say things without filter. Because for them, logic, structure is the most important thing. And they really, it's not that they're not emotional, they just don't have filters. So, because for them the most important thing is fact. They're facts, they're logic. Because we all have different types of logic. We have to understand, for an aquatic person, emotions are logical. So we all have our different logic. So, what do we do with this information? How can we use this? And I'm not saying just, I mean, with any personality system, it doesn't have to be developed beyond it. How do you use this information? First of all, never let the pitfalls define you. I can say something negative about every single type on this list, easily. I can say something positive about every type on this list. And I've had people come to me and they go, I took this test with this other system, and it told me my strengths and pitfalls, and I started crying because I saw that I've been working for years, going through therapy, trying a million different things to solve these pitfalls, and here it says I'm going to have them for life. No, that's not how we do personal development, and that's why I say personality psychology can limit us. If we go, ooh, I'm this type, that means I cannot do this other thing over here. I'm an introvert, I'm not going to do no sales. I'm an introvert, I'm not going to speak on stage. My former business partner, when he started working with me, he said, I'll never speak on stage. You can count on me for everything. When we developed this, trust me, he traveled with me to many countries talking on stage. So, what is it that makes that difference between not being able to talk on stage and being able to talk on stage? For an introvert, for example. Or for an extrovert, what makes a difference between being able to be focused, structured, and organized, or being a total chaos? What we talk about is regeneration. When we go into something that's uncomfortable, outside of our essence, when we go into it with 100% battery, it's easy. How many introverted professors do you know who are extroverted on stage? How many people, like introverts, do you see at Comic-Con having a blast, dressing up and networking with hundreds of thousands of people? When we are passionate about something, it gets easier. And that's why we have to explore our passions. Look at Google, the company, Google. They do something very interesting. They design their campus, the layout of their campus, which is like a university campus for those that don't know, in a way that there's regenerative spaces for every type of personality. There are places where you can move around a lot. There's bicycles, there's sports, there's video games, and there are little capsules where you can sit inside and disconnect and lower your stimulus. There's something for everyone in terms of regenerative spaces. A lot of Silicon Valley startups get this. They invest in things that for other people and other companies seem like a distraction. But if you allow those distractions for an efficient, like 10, 20 minutes, half an hour, in the right moment, the productivity after that is going to be so much higher. In my first company, I made a big mistake. My grandfather, he retired very early. He retired as a millionaire at like 45. So I was like, I need to learn from this guy. What did he tell me? First be, then way of being. What does this mean? First, build your company, make your money, work very, very hard for the first bit of your life, and then you can enjoy your life for the rest of it. Yeah, don't tell that to a fired person, because what did that turn into? That turned into me working 22 hours a day, sleeping 2 hours on my computer chair, and not even allowing myself to go to bed and sleep. Because I was like, I'm passionate. I'm going to be a great leader for the company. I wasn't a great leader. I drained myself like crazy. I managed to not sleep, and I used to brag about that every day. I don't sleep. I don't need to sleep. I'm so passionate. My productivity, yes, I did a lot of interesting things. But when I started this project, suddenly I get to a point where I go, okay, I need to make some changes in my life. I'm seeing that my mind is not as clear as it used to be. Things are a little bit difficult. What can I do? So I reflected and I thought, what did I used to do to regenerate when I was younger? One of the things was video games. And I thought, when was the last time I played a video game? I haven't played video games in years. I had cut out everything that regenerated me. Video games, partying, going out, exploring, having fun, traveling. I didn't do anything because I locked myself in working because I thought that was the mature thing to do. I was like, okay, time to change this. And the funny thing is, in that moment, I started asking permission, which, let me say, fiery people don't ask permission. If you say something, you tell a fiery person they can't do something, they're going to prove you wrong. But I felt so guilty. I was like, Mom? My mom was in Japan at the time, and I called my mom. I was like, Mom, can I buy a PlayStation? An adult, a businessman. Can I buy a PlayStation? I called my sister. What do you think if I maybe buy a PlayStation? I think it might regenerate me. My business partner, I'm thinking of buying a PlayStation, and I'm like nervous about telling them that I want to play video games again. They all said, yes, please, now, yesterday, please, 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 please. I buy the PlayStation. 20 minutes or half an hour playing PlayStation, allowing myself to disconnect and regenerate. I get back to the computer, and things I didn't have the mental clarity to do for 2 years in that company, I did in half an hour. My business partner told me, why didn't you do this earlier? If it was so easy and so fast, I've been begging you for 2 years to do it. And I had to tell him, it was easy now because I had the mental clarity, I was regenerated, but before it was impossible. And it was hard for him to grasp. But then we started exploring this further. And we started consciously regenerating. The moment my mental clarity went down, just slightly, my productivity went down, my business partner would go over to me and we were like, time to play PlayStation. Or, time to go outside, let's go outside. We experimented to allow myself to do a lot of things I didn't allow myself. I had robbed myself from many experiences due to guilt, right? I started doing all these things, and I started living a very rich life. I started traveling all over the world. I started having a romantic life, which I also had concluded I cannot have romance in my life until I'm like successful and stuff because it's just a distraction. I can't have video games. I can't have this and the other. I started allowing myself all these experiences that I had robbed myself from. And what happened? I start being more successful. I start making more money. I start having a complete life where I didn't have to sacrifice stuff. How many times do people tell you in personal development, you have to make sacrifices to be successful? Sure, I've made sacrifices. I'm not saying you don't need to make sacrifices, but it's sometimes you feel like we have to. I remember with my first startup, I was like, I'm gonna eat ramen noodles every day because that's what you do in startups. I had the money to buy real food, but no, I tried to make everyone eat ramen because that's what they do in Silicon Valley. That's not necessary. I mean, sometimes it is, and we have to be flexible, but how many times do we make sacrifices we don't have to make? A lot. And why do we make them? Because someone judged us. Someone rejected us. Someone told us we were immature. We weren't focused. We never finished stuff. And depending on your personality, you've heard different things. Electric types, they hear all the time, oh, you never finish anything, you start so many things, and you're immature, and blah, blah, blah. Fiery types, you're too intense. Aquatic types, oh, you're too dramatic, too emotional. Earthy types, stop taking care of everyone. Put yourself first for once. That one I had to learn the hard way. I was taking care of everyone in my family with my earthy side, like crazy. I was like driving back and forth between 3 different cities to take care of my father, my grandfather, my mother, my uncles, everyone in the family, because I like to help. It made me feel useful. But it didn't go very well. One time I was driving back and forth between 3 different cities every week to a point where I was so tired that I fell asleep on the highway and almost killed my mother and I. After that, I started to give myself earthly regenerative space. What is earthly regenerative space? That's actually the classic relaxation stuff. And for me, video games works very well. And let me say, not every earthly type is going to like video games because that's my personal interest. So you got to find what works for you. I started realizing if I want to help people, I need to help myself first. It's what they tell you in airlines. You've probably heard it a lot because in personal development, they tell this example a lot, but it's so true. First, put the oxygen mask on yourself, and then on others. Because if you die, you can't help anyone. So I started actually doing that. And things got easier. So we have to give ourselves our regenerative spaces so that we bring out the best in ourselves. So that we have the energy and perseverance to go through the hard times and deal with the surprises. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've seen entrepreneurs give up over silly things because they didn't have the passion and because they designed a business model that drained them. How many times as entrepreneurs did we decide, ooh, I'm going to model my business after Steve Jobs because it worked for him, or after Mark Zuckerberg? My first startup, I tried to design it after Steve Jobs. My personality is the opposite of Steve Jobs. So just because it works for him doesn't mean it works for me. Also, in personal development, how many times do we try to do what our friends do? I once had a client, a fiery client, come up to me and say, I don't understand why these tools that work for other people don't work for me. Like, my friends, they swear about Tai Chi and yoga and all these sort of things, and it works wonders for them. And I mean, it's been proven that it works for so many people. Why doesn't it work for me? And I told her, okay, we have different personalities. What do you need? What stimulus do you need to regenerate? She was like, I need more action. I would like a martial art. I would like more adrenaline. That would have a much better impact. Okay, well, why don't you go to a martial arts class? Ooh, yeah, why don't I? But we start copying the people around us because it works for them. And we don't listen to what we need. And we don't design our lives based on what we need. Because we don't give ourselves the right importance. So that's why I love personal development. I love personality theory. But we have to be very, very careful with how we handle this. Because if we assume that everyone is the same and that one-size-fits-all solutions are going to work, we're going to drain a lot of people. I'm talking from a business perspective. If you guys are coaches, for example, don't just share what works for you. If you're salespeople, don't just sell based on what you would buy. For example, this phone right here. If I were to sell it, how would I sell it? Well, my instinct is probably going to be to sell it based on what I like about it. But my client might be focused more about the cases. Like an electric person, they're going to be like, I want the case with the unicorn on Wednesday, and I want a case with like glitter on Thursdays. I'm exaggerating. Well, not actually that much, because electric people, they want constant change and variation. You want to show them something dynamic. A metallic person, you go up and show them a unicorn case, they're going to be like, what utility does that have? That has no relevance to me. You talk about cost-benefit with them, you have their attention. You talk about studies and research and data, you have their attention. But we tend to sell based on our own values. Fiery types, they want the best. If you try to sell me a phone that's not the best flagship model, I walk out of the store. Or I'd be like, no, I don't want that shit, I want that one right there. We all are motivated by different things. And we have to understand, for our businesses and our relationships, to honor these differences. We have to really focus on how can we honor these differences in our communication, in our sales, in our coaching, in our guidance, our children. How many times have you seen parents guide their children based on what they needed to hear at that age? My uncle is like that. My uncle, every time I see my uncle, he tells me all the things that I should not be doing, even though I'm not doing them, but it's because that's what he did at my age. And he doesn't want me to relive that. That's not the feedback I need to hear, but that's what he wants to give me. I'm grateful, obviously be grateful for the feedback you get from people, but find what works for you and what works for the people around you. We talk a lot about relationships. In relationships, how many times do we have arguments because of differences? A lot. And if we are proud in that moment and want to protect ourselves and stand up for ourselves, we're just going to drain each other arguing and no one's going to win. In a conflict, we should focus on resolving the conflict, not winning the argument. Yeah, I know, it can be hard. Think about this. Next conflict you have, do me this favor, try this exercise. Instead of trying to win or prove them wrong, ask yourself, how can I regenerate my partner or my friend or the person I'm arguing with? How can I be a source of regeneration for them in this moment? My girlfriend is sitting right here, and she knows when I'm drained, when I lack focus, she will, if she's not drained herself, what she will do is, okay, time to play video games, or time to go out, let's go for a walk. Instead of fighting with me, it's like, let's do this activity that's going to regenerate you so that you're less stressed, and then we can talk calmly. You never solve anything in the moment by forcing your opinion. But I think we've all done it. And we do it more when we're drained. Because when we're drained, we have less flexibility, less patience. When we're regenerated, we have more ability to adapt to the people around us. I'm going to share a little myth with you. How many of you have the opinion that extroverts make the best salespeople? There is this myth. I've worked in sales for many years, door to door, in store, on phone, services, products, you name it, I've sold it. I've been both top sales in my jobs and I've been bottom sales in my job, depending on whether or not they stimulated my personality or not and empowered me. But one thing I've seen, and something that has been heavily researched, is the ones that have the easiest time with sales are ambiverts. It's the ones that can adapt to either extreme with ease that have most success with sales. That doesn't mean you have to be an ambivert to be successful. Every personality can be amazing at sales. An extrovert, one of the things that they need to work on is attention to detail. Sometimes they're so impulsive that they forget the details, and then their client goes home and they forgot the batteries. Okay, we got to be a little bit careful with that. But they're charming. They talk to more people and have maybe more interactions per day because it's easier for them. Introverts, how do they do great at sales? Attention to detail. They might have fewer clients per day or per month, but each of those clients they will sell higher volume to because they have built trust in their way of doing things because they're methodical, they're careful. So they will rarely have a client go home and miss a detail because they will think about the details. Obviously, when any of these are drained, they're more likely to make mistakes. When we're regenerated, we're less likely to make mistakes. But we all have value even in sales. When it comes to dating, when we want to build attraction, The psychology of sales is the same as the psychology of building attraction. We don't have to be super fiery of, hey, look at me, blah, blah, blah. No. We actually have to adapt our intensity to what the other person can receive. If we're too intense with an airy person, they're going to shut down and run away. So sometimes we have to adapt. And you guys might think, oh, well, aren't you talking about being in your element all the time? No. We're talking about giving you tools so that as a base, as a starting off point, you're in your element, you're in your essence. But when needed, you can adapt to what's required in that moment. You can adapt to your client, you can adapt to your parent, your partner. Sometimes it's nice. How many times did you wish that your partner would adapt and see things from your perspective for a moment? Or a parent could put themselves in your shoes. How many times? All the time. Why don't you do the same for the people around you? Adapt your body language, intensity, keywords. I know my sister. She's airy electric. When she's drained, I give her a lot of personal space. I'll invent an excuse to go outside and go shopping or solve some problem outside to give her space. On her electric side, if I know she's very drained there, I know in that moment, I'm going to put something very funny on YouTube and make her laugh. When I know that, I don't have arguments, I don't have fights. Sure. Do we have moments where we get drained? Sure, but we can reduce it, we can limit it. So, in all areas of your life, personality theory can have a lot of value. Just don't see it as a box that limits you. Don't see it as a label that defines you. Don't see the pitfalls as something that define you, because you're not limited to your pitfalls. You regenerate, you work on your insecurities, you're not defined by your pitfalls. You're drained and insecure, your pitfalls will multiply. So find a way to be in your element as a base and adapt when you need to. And find your passion projects, because they double your battery. When you're passionate about something, it makes everything easier. So please reflect on all areas of your life and how to do that. Because it's something that we don't do enough. Because we get into routines, and breaking those routines can be hard. We get into habits, and breaking those habits can be hard. And we find something that works, and we stop seeing how we can optimize it. Ask yourself, how can I optimize my business, my relationship, my family life? By being a source of regeneration for everyone around me, and by bringing out the best in myself, by regenerating and working on overcoming all my fears and anxieties. Because how many bridges do we burn due to our fears and anxieties? So, anyway, let me just talk about what development is as an essence. You guys have heard a little bit about the power of personality theory when done in a slightly different way. So in development, we travel all over the world, offering workshops, offering classes. We offer it for individuals. We offer it for businesses. We help businesses with their sales, with the human resources. And we are trying to share this content in as many ways as possible, because this project is bigger than me. This stuff changed my life and my sister's life so much, I wish my sister was here. Because my sister, she was going to be here. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, she had an allergic reaction and couldn't be here. But my sister, before this project, she couldn't speak in public and almost not even in private. You would ask her a question in private, she would go running to the bathroom. Because she had so many anxieties that she would freeze and overthink all the possible answers, and it would be so much stress. Because she was drained all the time. In my house, my mother and I, we were fire and earth. We would fill the house with the whole town, adopt everyone, and it would be full of chaos in my house. My sister, with her side, needed a lot of space. We've robbed her of that space. We've robbed her of her regenerative space. 4 or 5 years ago, she moved to Japan. In Japan, there's a lot of respect for personal space. She regenerated without even thinking. And then suddenly she had enough energy to explore her more extroverted side. And it turns out she had an electric side trapped in there her whole life that would only come out at 3 in the morning when she was so tired she couldn't control her energies. But she was so worried about that weird, random, fun electric side coming out, because in relationships, she would always create the expectation of her being introverted, and when she became super random, they'd be like, what happened to you? Why do you get so excited about this weird thing? So she shut down half of herself. We created this project, and she started stimulating it, and I, as her brother, started stimulating this side of her. And now she travels all over the world with me and speaks in public, and she speaks so eloquently, and she has this ability to connect with people in a way that I go, wow, A few years ago, I thought I was going to hire her and pay her to do something where she didn't have to interact with people. And now I'm learning from her. So I really wish she was here right now. But yeah, so with this project, as I was saying a moment ago, it's bigger than me. I want to share this information with as many people as possible and make it accessible for everyone. So we're offering a free ebook right now. Literally no cost, just sign up for a mailing list. We do have staff, everyone with these t-shirts can help you out. It's a very generous book. It's not one of those 6-page books that's just to trick you into the mailing list. It's generous. Also, no matter what languages you speak, every day we're adding new languages. We have instructors all over the world. We have in Japanese, in Spanish, in Portuguese, in German, in French, in all kinds of different languages, and every day we're adding more. So if you have friends who are interested in this sort of stuff, no matter where they are, we travel worldwide. 90% of the year, we're traveling, giving classes. And we're very passionate about sharing this. We also have big plans for YouTube. We're just kind of starting and finding our way, but we're planning on sharing most of our tools and most of our content on YouTube generously. My mentality is everyone should win and everyone should have access to this information. And also, one last thing I wanted to tell you guys, my mentality is creating a system that becomes obsolete. I do not like when in personal development we build systems like they create a situation where you are addicted to it or depend on it. We have no processes or magical phrases or anything that makes you dependent on this system. You come to one class, your life should change. That's our mission. We hope that people choose to come back for more because we create an environment that's positive and an experience that's positive. But we never, ever, ever want to create something that's addicting, that makes people depend on us. Because in personal development and in psychology, that's a big problem, unfortunately, because they're businesses too and we have to run them. But I do never want to create something that you guys depend on. But I do want to empower you guys to have much more ease in all areas of your life, in your business, in your family, in your relationships. So whatever questions you may have, please get in touch with me. My email is jannik@developbeyondment.com, and our website is developbeyondment.com. On our website, we do have a social network like Facebook where you have your profiles, and you can see all the instructors all over the world, and you can see all the events that are scheduled around the world. The website is still under construction. It's not perfect, but every day it's getting better. So we are creating a global community there for you guys. So thank you. And yeah, so on the way out, we will have our staff with a tablet ready to sign you guys up for the ebook. I know many of you already have signed up for it, but if anyone would like that ebook, please go see our staff, and they'll be more than happy to register you guys. So thank you very much.